it's Jane. Thanks so much for stopping by. Clearly Besotted came out with these free downloads for these bead cards a couple of weeks ago, and I made over 100. I had quite a few people ask me how I made them, so I thought I would show you a really quick video. I'm going to show you how to use Copic markers and colored pencils. So the download comes with one bee image on a sheet, and I was able to duplicate that and print 4 at a time. And I printed on Nina 110-pound cardstock. These are the Copic markers that I use. I am not a Copic colorer. I do whatever I can to get by. I'm completely happy with the fact that I can actually color with my alcohol markers. If you want a really great person to color, I will link to Sandy Allnock for you because I've taken quite a few classes from Sandy. So when I made the 100, what I did was I did one card at a time of the yellow because there was quite a bit of the yellow. But if I was doing the leaves or the stems or the black, I would do 3 or 4 cards at a time in more like an assembly line version. I'm just putting down the lightest color, just getting my paper wet, and then I'm taking the darker color and just giving it a little highlight there. Wasn't into shading, blending really. Again, I had 100 and some odd cards that I wanted to make, and I wanted to get these all out in the mail. So I laid down my darker color, and then I went back on top with my lighter color to make sure that I did blend a little bit more, and to fill out the areas that I know I did not finish with the yellow from before. The ones I mailed out before had speech bubbles for each of the little bees. I could not find my leftover speech bubbles, so I did not put any on there, but I will, in my blog post, I will have a picture of everything, and all of the supplies that I use will be in the blog post. A lot of the stamping companies are not shipping right now, so I have tried to link as much as I could to Amazon, as well as this is a free download. You can use colored pencils, you can use Zig Clean Color markers, you can use whatever color medium that you have. And this is where I'm showing you, if I did assembly line, I would line up 3 or 4 cards. I would do all the light green, all the dark green, and then back with all the light green. And there is something wrong with this green Copic marker of mine. It dripped ink, and thankfully it dripped the ink onto the leaf, not onto the card. So as I was saying is that I link to as many things as I possibly can on Amazon, but please shop your stash. You do not need to buy anything special for these cards. I just really wanted to show you how I made them. And again, I will link to Clearly Besotted, who came up with the bee card. I will link to Catherine Pooler, who came up to the inside in the video description, but all of the details will be in the blog post. So that's how I did the green. Nothing exciting, no rocket science there. Now I did go outside the lines a little bit. So I grabbed my colorless blender, and what it does is it pushes the ink back into the area. So it's a little wet now, but if you look at it in just a couple of minutes, it will dry and you won't even know I colored outside the lines, which is absolutely beautiful. So I'm coloring the branch right now using the E23, E27. Again, just getting the paper wet so that I can lay down the contrasting color, quick coloring, no blending. And this is really how I do most of my coloring. My friends and family are so appreciative of the fact that I actually make cards that no one ever criticizes my coloring. And maybe someday I will get better at it. But there's so many things that I want to do that I doubt that will happen. Now, I don't ever color with straight black because it's too dark. And I want a little bit of shading on these little bees. So I'm just wetting it down with the N5. And then I'm going to come back and highlight with the N7. And I'm going to feather my highlighting. This is what I learned from Sandy Allnock, is I And I'm not that good, but it's kind of like a flick. You're flicking it into the area, keeping the middle unflicked with a lighter color. So it looks like a little bit of highlights, like a light and dark, like, you know, light would be hitting it. And it looks almost the same color right now, but when it dries, you will notice that there's a difference in shading there. And I'm, again, perfectly happy. I think they came out really cute. I just mailed these the other day, about 110 of them. It was really fun. My husband did some coloring with colored pencils. I did the alcohol markers, and I made 90 and he made 10, which is okay. He's a slow colorer, plus it takes a little bit longer to color with pencils. I'm just flicking some blue ink on there so it looks like little wings. And I'm using this Nuvo, what's it called? Aqua Shimmer pen. And I'm putting a little bit of shimmer on the bee's wings. Now, when you get this pen, it's got a little circle inside there. You need to take that little circle off and then close it back up to pop the inside so the ink starts to flow. So this is just going to give those wings a little bit of shimmer because they are bees after all. And then what I'm going to do is go through my stash and find yellow paper, pattern paper. Now, I used up so much earlier that I had a hard time trying to find some paper for this video. But I went through my stash and I cut the yellow paper. The cards are 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Oh, getting ahead of myself. Sorry, I forgot I was coloring with colored pencils. So I use this Boss Stitch pencil sharpener. It is on Amazon in blue, and I did link that for you. And it is one of my favorite pencil sharpeners because the batteries seem to last a long time, and it gets a really great point. So again, I'm not a colorer. So I'm just coloring as much as I can the beige yellow or whatever color. I'm using Prismacolor pencils. There is a Polychromos out there, which I wish I owned, but because I already bought the Prismacolor, I can't really at this point justify the Polychromos. But I understand that the Polychromos blend a little bit better. I learned from Sandy Allnock that when you color with colored pencils, you don't press down hard, because when you do, you get some kind of wax buildup or something and it becomes shiny and then you can't blend. So you just do multiple light layers of color. And I'm going to do the exact same thing that I did with the alcohol. And I'm just going to do the shading and go from there. And then when I'm done with the coloring, I'm going to show you how I use something called Gamsol. And there's no rocket science to my coloring. I lay down the light, I lay down the dark. I'm not really paying much attention to it. I do know that I'm going to blend it with the Gamsol. As I said, I will show you that in a second. Gamsol is a similar consistency to baby oil, and I understand that you can use baby oil as well. I am finishing off with feathering out the wings. I wanted to have a little bit of color in the wings. I have linked all of these products on Amazon for you. The Gamsol comes in a bottle. There's also this neat little dispenser bottle that I have. And to blend everything, you use something called a stub. It's a paper stub, and you can buy them individually or you can buy them in a pack. I bought the pack. And they're long, skinny, short, fat, whatever, but they are actual paper. So when I color, I start with the lightest one first, but when my stub gets dirty, the kit comes with this little sandpaper, and you just sharpen the point and you get the old color off with that. So this has like a little felt spongy thing on the top. So I turn it over and I get my stub wet. You'll see it get wet. And I turn over again, then of course I spill Gamsol all over this place. I use microfiber cloths in my craft room. I very rarely use paper towels. I prefer to reuse as much as I possibly can. So it's going to be hard to see how I blend this on the lighter colors. When you get to the darker colors, you'll be able to see a little bit better, but I'm just taking this stub and I'm going over all the areas that have the colored pencil in there. And I'm going to show you in just a second the yellow. The top of the beehive is Gamsol. The bottom has not been. That bee has Gamsol. That bee does not. The difference in my mind is absolutely amazing. Now, my husband, he prefers to have it without the Gamsol. He likes the more textured look of the colored pencils. So finishing up the card, the bee on the top left, I used the Gamsol on the black, and this one I did not. And you can see the difference between how it does blend it a little bit better. I prefer either way. I think the Gamsol is better for me because then I don't have to spend so much time blending it and getting it all to lay flat, not flat, but to lay the way it needs to lay. Okay, now that we're all done coloring, we're going to turn these into cards. So as I said, I did not have very much paper left, so I went through my stash and found a couple of pieces of yellow. The finished cards are 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I cut the yellow paper, I think like 1/8 of an inch smaller. So what is that? 4 1/8 by something. These are the Prismacolor pencils that I have. I have the 150 pencil set. I have full set syndrome. I need to have all the sets. My cards are made out of Nina 110-pound cardstock. I'm scoring it on my score buddy at 4 1/4 with a thin bone folder. I have 2 bone folders. This is my thin one that I use for scoring. And then I'm going to fold it with my Teflon bone folder, which I absolutely adore. Now you'll notice when you score, there's the valley there. That's where I ran the bone folder on top. You turn your card over and fold it in the other direction. You get a much crisper fold, and it resists the cracking and the tearing of the paper that way. I just want to let you know that. So I'm going to cut my yellow paper a little bit smaller than the 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I'm going to lay my finished cards on top, and I'm out of my favorite tape runner. I will link my favorite tape runner. Again, everything is on the blog post. So I'm going to lay these onto the yellow cardstock. And again, I was trying to do assembly line. I was trying to do something really quick. And as I'm doing this, I'm thinking, I don't really know if I want to do that. So I just wanted to show you that it's never too late. You carefully take it apart. You can save it because I wanted to add something to the bottom of the card. So I have some black twine. I believe this came from Lawn Fawn. I can't remember, but again, I linked it all for you. And I like to wrap my twine around 3 times. So I do a little bit on the bottom. I'll leave a little bit hanging down just so I know I have enough for a bow. I'm going to wrap it around 3 times. And then I'm going to tie it in a knot. I used to try to tie it in a bow first, and I realized it was always coming out, so I tied a knot. Now, if you have these self-clamping tweezers, you can hold your knot with those to keep it flat and not move, but I've been tying bows for so long now that my thumb is in the place of the tweezers. I like to separate a little bit to give it a little more interest, overlap them so they don't look all neat and beautiful. And I'm just going to tie this in a bow. Sometimes bows are fiddly, and cut the ends. Sorry about the head. Now I'm recording this in the middle of coronavirus, and I think the first thing I'm going to do is, well, I know the first thing I'd like to do is get my hair colored because I cannot deal anymore. And I can't wait to hug my family, but that might not happen right away. I might have to wait a couple more weeks for that. But we can at least sit and have dinner together or something. So cutting the ends off of there and then adhering this to the actual card. And again, there's the head, there's the gray. For the other card, I did something a little bit different. I tied it with a black ribbon. And I'm sorry I did not show that to you. But there it is. Sorry. There it is. And the We Are In This Together is a download from Catherine Pooler. And she has 4 on a page, so I printed 4 out. and I adhered one to the inside of each of the cards. I am planning on making some cards with that all by itself. I am using Nouveau Crystal Drops in Dandelion color, and you always burp your Nouveau drops or any drops first to get the air out. And then you just kind of figure out where you want to put them. I always try to go to the top first so I don't bump it. And then when I'm done with these, I always put them on a windowsill because inevitably I forget that I use them. And you just keep on squeezing until you've got a big enough dot. And then I'm going to kind of tap it against the edge of my table here, which is why everything's bumping, just to kind of level off the dots just a little bit. The one on the right, I used plastic dots that were on a sheet that I had in my stash, and the one on the left has the Nouveau. One has twine, one has ribbon. I really can't tell you which one I like better. I think they're both just so cute. So don't forget about your envelopes. This is one of my favorite sets, and I thought Keep Calm and Make Cards would be really appropriate right now. So I stamped that on both of my envelopes, and there are my 2 finished cards. The one on the left is Copic's. The one on the right is colored pencils. Thank you so much for stopping by. I really, really appreciate it.